Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. And yes, we are in Palm Beach, Florida. Joining me, Joe Budd, president of Club 45 USA. Thank you for joining us, Joe.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for you and your husband coming down to speak to our club. It was very exciting, a great draw, and we just really appreciate you coming.
Okay, but tell me, didn't
support.
you just love when the president called in? I mean, that's pretty
classic. I really loved when he said my name. He knows who I am. That was the best part about that call. So,
right,
yeah.
Right. But, I mean, you know, when you're going around and you're talking to folks here at the local level, you brought up some interesting points about the exchange between what the newspapers are saying about Mitt Romney and how there's these Trump-crazed people. Why is it so important to clarify what's really happening on the ground?
Well, first of all, they want to say that we should have a Mitt Romney-like candidate in the next cycle, because they know for sure the Biden poll numbers, approval ratings are so low, they have no chance. They're losing the country, they know it, and they don't want us to replace the next president with somebody that's like Donald Trump. They want a Mitt Romney type, and there's no way people are going to vote for the Mitt Romney type candidate. We want a strong conservative candidate who supports the people's agenda, not the political agenda. And that's what Club 45 is all about, supporting the people's agenda.
So how did you get involved in the first place?
Well, I started the club back in February of 2018. It could have been 17. It's been a while now. One key statistic: in the presidential preference primary in 2016, President Trump won Palm Beach County with 52% of the vote. But the key number was another 52%. There was a 52% greater turnout than 2012 with Mitt Romney running. And I thought, well, who are these 52%? And why are they coming out? Obviously, it was a message that President Trump was giving that attracted them. And I wanted to keep them involved and keep them active in the party. And that's why you saw that fake news about how we've lost votes in 2020. Trump lost, but no, it's 2% greater than what Romney did, 8 years ago. So that's not true. The enthusiasm is great on the ground. What
are you working to do to make sure we get more voters registered and kind of, I would say, preach the America First gospel in a sense?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I'm also a board member of the Republican Party of Florida as the Palm Beach County State Committeeman, and they have a very intensive voter registration program going on. As a matter of fact, over the next year, before the 2022 election, Florida may become a Republican majority state. Most people don't realize that Trump won this state in 2020 by 300,000 votes, but we're a Democrat majority state.
Right.
That's going to flip. I think that's going to flip within the year, and we're working hard at doing that.
And how do you think the enthusiasm, what you're seeing here in Palm Beach, do you think that's going to be happening elsewhere in the country?
I really do. In fact, I was shocked of the 2020 results. We went from 112,000 victory in 2016 to 300,000. I thought we're no different than any other place, except when Governor DeSantis came in, he fired the corrupt supervisors of elections. We got rid of that problem right away. He had the guts to do it. Other people talked about it. He had the guts to do it. We need that same state level work done in other states to get rid of these corrupt supervisors of elections that we saw in the Atlanta area, Fulton County, and in Arizona and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Okay, we got to get rid of that corruption. We have to have boots on the ground locally.
So if you were to predict, do you think that President Trump runs again in 2024? I know what Larry thinks. Where's Larry?
Uh-oh, that's a tough question for me, because I'm quoted in Real Clear Politics a couple of weeks ago saying I don't think he will run.
Interesting.
Yeah, not that he shouldn't run, but I don't think he will run.
Right.
I don't know that his wife is into it to run again. He took a lot of heat. Obviously, we know he was bashed for 4 consecutive years. Hard. I think that he has a trusted individual in Governor Ron DeSantis that can carry that torch.
Interesting.
And I know a lot of people don't like me saying that, but I think that he's a guy who's not part of the swamp. The president knows it, but the president might not just want to be a kingmaker. He might still want to be the king.
You might have some infighting, Club 45 USA.
Oh, yeah,
Where do you think
I
he
know.
runs?
Yeah.
I think he will run, and our club will support him all the way across the finish line.
That's absolutely true. We will.
Okay.
If he runs, we will support him for sure.
Well, let me tell you, the suspense is great. So we're
Yeah.
going to keep you posted on what Club 45 USA does as we get closer to the 2024 presidential election. Joe Budd, thank you so much for joining us.
Next time
on
the president
CPAC
calls,
Now.
he'll take my name in vain now because I said
Exactly.
that. Thank you so much.
Now, let's watch some more highlights from the wonderful time that Matt and I had at Club 45 USA with these great American patriots. Take a look. But, you know, I'm having like two mottos in 2021. It's the world's gone mad. So every time I talk to Matt and he's like, did you see that coverage on the teacher that did this and this to the student and they're teaching about critical race theory? I'm like, the world's gone mad. Don't you feel that way? Like, what is going on in America? The world. And then you go through the list of things where you have the National School Board Association calling parents domestic terrorists. So let me give you a hint. It's not just about federal elections. It's about the local and state elections. It is about getting the right people in these positions to take over our local and state governments that are freedom-loving individuals who are student endorsed and parent endorsed. Who cares about the teacher union endorsed?
That's right.
And then you have the schools dealing with gender confusion at the age of 4 or 5, and we have to stop it. We have to stop the teachers' unions. We've got to stop this radicalization of these teachers trying to take over our schools. There's plenty of good teachers out there. Those are the ones that we have to support. But remember, as grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents, you're in charge of your kids. You're in charge of talking to them about every day what is happening in this world, why America is the greatest country in the whole entire world, and making sure that they stand up, put their hand over their heart, pledge allegiance to our flag, and know why our founding fathers did what they did to create this great country and protect our Constitution.
I want to say something to John, to you and to your colleagues at Newsmax. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
If we don't have, we're getting very close to basically having no media that will cover the truth. We're all scouring to find it. The role you're playing is critically important. You know, last summer, I don't know how many of you used to leave your TV on all the time. We got a new house, and I, being a typical dude, I bought the biggest TVs in the world.
He wanted a man cave, and I was
put
like,
them
are you
everywhere.
serious? We have 5 daughters. There's no room for a man cave. He has one male dog. It's like you and the dog could go into the basement. But then we thought, well, Biden lives in the basement. That's not going to work.
I used to say the only way I was going to get a son was gender confusion, but that's not funny anymore. So I got all these big TVs, and then we all know what happened with the violence of Black Lives Matter, Antifa protests. We all know what happened when the media would have these captions under the president basically saying he's a liar. And we just turned it off, except for some exceptions. And I think we all feel this way. You know, when we traveled the world and did CPACs in Australia, in Japan, in Korea, can you imagine a CPAC in Korea? We're going to do one in Israel. We're going to do one in Hungary.
Yes.
We have 25, 26 countries that want us to be there. But you know, we all have the same fight. You know what they get overseas for their news? CNN International.
So can I share my...
Don Lemon in 5 different languages. Can you imagine?
He doesn't know how to speak Portuguese. So we're down in CPAC, Brazil, and you know, I'm telling you, if you think you all are such a great crowd. I mean, I'm almost thinking you're Brazilian at this point, because the Brazilians, they have chants, they're singing all the conservative songs, it's great. It's like a big Rio party, it's fabulous. So all of a sudden they're speaking Portuguese and they're like, la 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 la, fake news, and everyone just jumps up. They're having the same struggles.
They know, for example, in the case of Brazil, what it is to live under socialist and communist rule. They lost their country for a very long time, and they've been able to make the shift. Now we're seeing in Australia these horrific lockdowns with the mask mandates at all costs. You can't even leave your house. We have friends down there that tell us how horrific their living conditions are, that the police are checking in on them to make sure they can't leave. This is authoritarianism. It is wrong. And what you learn from these international countries is we have to do everything we can to preserve America. If America goes down, we are done. The world is done.
That's right. And so we have these common themes. And what we realized is we went to Japan, and all these Japanese women had on MAGA hats. And I said from far away, I'm like, oh, when I get closer to these Japanese women, it's going to be really cool to see the Make Japan Great Again hat. And as I got closer, I realized it said America. And I was like, well, this is weird. Were they just being hospitable because we've traveled all the way to Tokyo, which is a very long flight, and I flew coach, and I'm not a small person, and so I get up to the hats, and I'm like, I say to the translator, I'm like, why would you wear a hat like rooting on America? And I heard this over and over again throughout our several days in Tokyo, because in America, you have a president who understands the biggest threat to us on the globe is China, and he's got our backs. If you wanted to say what the Trump doctrine is, I might not be the scholar to come up with the perfect words, but I'll show you the picture of those Japanese women in those MAGA hats. That's the Trump doctrine.
And so freedom continues to be this virtue, this principle that we all have to stand for. And it's why I think organizations like yourselves, we need to multiply this everywhere across the country. We need to see Club 45 everywhere across the country. You all are the reason that we won Florida. It is because your incredible work, you standing up for what you know is right, and the one thing Donald Trump has taught us all is you fight. If you think we can come across and just make it all nice and soft and sweet and it's all unicorns and rainbows with the Democrats, no way. It's not going to happen. They don't want to negotiate with us. They never wanted to negotiate with President Trump. One of my favorite stories is Nancy Pelosi announces that she's going to impeach the Nancy needs to go back to San Francisco and get her hair done. Let's make sure she's locked down in San Francisco with the gender-neutral aisle that they're creating at the department stores. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, people. You just can't. So Nancy is in the cabinet. She literally does a press conference. We're going to move forward with the articles of impeachment. All of it a hoax. All of it just trying to destroy the president. She shows up to the White House, and I'll never forget, she's in the cabinet room, and the president calls us in and says, watch this. So we're all sitting in the cabinet room, and all of a sudden Nancy's sitting there with her, whoever her plastic surgeon is, though, is really good, okay? Seriously. The president walks in, and she's like, let's negotiate these, like very political, let's negotiate this infrastructure bill. I think we can come to a resolution. He goes, I am not going to work with you. You're a liar. You're going after me on impeachment. This is outrageous. This is not how you do a deal. And he walks out of the room. And sweet old Nancy was a nervous wreck, didn't know what to do with herself. At some point, she was like talking to herself, saying, I just can't believe he just walked out. And all of us couldn't help but just laugh. We were like, this is so good. This is so good. You can't make this up. But I will tell you one fun story about Donald Trump, because it really bothers me. And we have, obviously, you have lost a lot of friends in this process of people who take advantage of Trump. And then when Trump is down, they try to beat him up. and they say horrible things about them. I'm sure you have an uncle, an aunt, a liberal cousin, you know these people that you're like, let's not talk politics, but it always ends up talking about politics. And the president, we were in the Oval Office. I was with him, and he has a painting of Andrew Jackson up. And he looks over to me and he goes, "Who do you think is the most handsome president in history?" I was like, I'm gonna get fired for this one. So I'm like racking my brain, JFK, and then I look at the painting and I'm like, "Sir, Andrew Jackson." And he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Are you serious?" I mean, he has the best sense of humor. He understood what it took to be tough on the most biased media I have ever seen in my life. This is how it would work with CNN reporters. I'd be in my little, when I mean little, it is the tiniest office in the West Wing ever. And I would walk in, and the reporter would come in, and Laura, who now works with us, Laura Nassim, who is been working for Donald Trump since 19 years old, and she was my assistant at the White House. Literally, they would walk in, and Laura can vouch for me on this, and they would go, "I heard there was a meeting in the Oval Office, and I have these details. So we have a source close to the White House that this is what happened." I was in the meeting, that didn't happen. This is what happened. No, CNN reporter says, "Actually, I have a source close to the White House who was not in the meeting that this is what happens." Guess what CNN reports? The source close to the White House. They were against us from day one, that liberal media. They were destined and focused on destroying this president, destined and focused to destroy anyone who worked for the President of the United States, with the ultimate goal of making you all feel that you're a racist, a bigot, white privilege, you name it.
That's right.
And we have to tell them no more. We have to tell them that we bleed red, white, and blue, that we, as God has taught us, that we love one another and that we love this country. And we are not going to let those liberals, those radicalized liberals who are in charge right now of our Congress and in charge of Joe Biden, because Joe Biden probably takes a nap for 5 hours a day, and tell them that we are not going to put up with this, that we are going to speak boldly and we are going to continue to make sure that we stand for America First principles.
And we are in this moment where, first of all, I have to say that when your wife works for Donald Trump, everyone tells you where we live, like, "Oh, that must be terrible. Aren't you worried about your wife?" And I'd have the occasion to talk to him, and it was always great. He'd always say, "Hello, Matt." And he would say, "First of all, Mercedes looks beautiful. I'm not supposed to say it, but it's true. Let's get that over with." That's how he is. And then you would have a wonderful conversation, and you realize how much he loves the country. I tried to give him advice. Oftentimes it was really bad advice. I told him as he was preparing for his first debate, I said, "Sir, how about a one-pager on how you want to cut taxes?" He goes, "No, nobody will read it." So, he was right. I said to him, we were going to have a CPAC event after the first debate. I said, "Come to our party after the debate. It'll be fun. You'll get to see all these activists." He goes, "No, I might do really bad." He had never been in a debate before, but he did great. And I think we have to understand, all of us together, and this is a packed room, and you guys are great and you're patriots. But what's happening in this country is wrong. What's happening in this country is illogical. And we said it earlier, the president raised this question, what's happening in this country is evil's unleashed. And evil feels like they're going to take us down. And evil's trying to make you feel discouraged. The devil is on quite a streak, quite a winning streak. I'd like to stop his streak. Not everybody exists on like a spiritual sphere. Some of us are also in that political fight. But what we all have to understand is this. When we pick up our machines, our phones, and we see that people are standing up against big government mandates, When I read about these pilots and these air traffic controllers, it makes me tear up. We can still save the country. When I read about these kids that are being taught this absolute sewage, that this is a bad country, that this is a racist country, that being a Republican or a conservative means you don't like people of color, or you don't like people from other nations, when the Republican Party was established to fight slavery, to make it illegal, to give the slaves their full civil rights. Because we don't teach our history, we allow them to corrupt our history, to change our history, to teach our kids and grandkids the opposite of what is true. And what I would like to do is reclaim it and proclaim it and defend the country. And what you all have to do, and you know this, is when you see something semi-insane in front of you and all the socialists are trying to act like this is normal, say it's not normal. Walk up and say, that's not a good thing. You're not correct, right? We have to do this wherever we see it. And for anyone's sake, how about our kids? What kind of country are we going to leave our kids? I tell our 5 girls all the time, I apologize to you for the country we are leaving you. But it's not too late. And Mercy and I were at church recently out in the mountains of Virginia, where we might just elect a Republican, by the way, to the governorship. Might happen. You remember this, sweetheart? We're in this church. It's called Our Lady of the Blue Ridge. It's the most humble, sweet little church with a really kind pastor. And you know what's happening as they teach critical race theory? All these people who can't afford to send their kids to parochial schools or Christian schools, they're flocking to the churches and saying, in Catholic circles we call it CCD, everyone has Bible study, whatever. These kids are flocking there, but they don't have enough teachers. And because you can't meet the demand. This is happening all over. I was just in Pennsylvania. They don't have enough volunteers to teach these kids, and the parents want the kids to hear something decent and wholesome and right. And we got there, and this woman stood up, and what did she say? Do you remember this? Go.
We need to build a warrior generation. The next generation will be the warriors. They'll probably face more persecution. They probably will have a lot of difficulties, but we need to build them strong. And it starts with our faith. It starts with having them read the Bible, read Scripture, read the Old Testament, learning that this history that comes before us is so long ago, but is so relevant today. And it is clear that our God has not abandoned us. And it is clear that He is going to give power to the people to stand up against evil. And that is what we believe we do every day at American Conservative Union, at CPAC, through these incredible grassroots activists who understand what's at stake and what we can lose in America.
And Mercy and I look at each other a lot when we wonder, like, we believe in hope. It's a virtue. But sometimes it's on short supply. We wonder how much time we got left. When we were in Hong Kong, as you all know, they probably don't teach this, but the fact is, the Hong Kongers got 50 years, right? They got 50 years of guaranteed freedom when the UK turned over the Hong Kong to the communist Chinese government. And out of nowhere, we saw all these protests going on in Hong Kong. Maybe a lot of us didn't really understand it. We're going about our daily lives. But what the young people realized is that they were clawing back on the 50 years. The communists never keep any agreement with anybody. They never care about the human rights of anybody. The only people that prosper under a communist regime are the people in power. We know this. People get sicker, they get poorer, they get sadder, they get desperate. And they saw the communists clawing back and clawing back and clawing back, and we were invited to go over, and we were the first Westerners invited to go over and protest with these children, essentially, students, who are either dead or in prison today. And this was not long ago. And we kept saying to them, why do you have so much courage? You're 18 years old, some as young as 12.
Right.
You have so much courage. How can you have so much courage? And they said, because we don't have any time left. By the time, a few years from now, we won't be able to choose our profession. We won't be able to choose where we live. We won't be able to choose if we get married or how many kids we'll have. We have to fight now because in 10 years it's too late. And I thought, I can't understand it, but I love it, but I can't understand it. I have something to tell you. I think I now understand it. How much time we got?
So it's during the time Matt was in Hong Kong with several of our staffers at CPAC, it was obviously very nerve-wracking. So he didn't take his phone with him, so he basically said, if something happens, you need to call over to Pompeo's office, call over to the president, just let him know that we might not be able to get out of Hong Kong. We would pray every night with the 5 girls, and we would do intentions. And our little one, Lucia, who's like Match Slap Junior, no filter, she's in her classroom debating. She says, I have 2 Charlotte friends, one Charlotte for Biden and one Charlotte for Trump. And I've talked to the Charlotte for Biden about how bad Biden and Kamala are. So she's trying to recruit these kids to change their positions, which is great. But she did pray that night, and she said, and this is why kids understand more than you think. I said, well, what's your intention, Lucia? She goes, I don't want the commies to throw my dad in jail. And she was right. So we prayed, and fortunately he got out with the team, but it is very eye-opening because this is happening across the globe, and you don't want it to happen here in America. And in talking to one of a presidential historian, Craig Shirley, he told me there's very little keeping the country together. What's keeping America together? Before it was the flag, it was the patriotism, it was God, under God. That's falling apart. So where are we going to end up? Are we ending up with the red states and the blue states? Are we only going to be able to be free in the red states because you have powerful, strong governors like Ron DeSantis standing up against the media, standing up against an intrusive Joe Biden? And that's where we are right now. But let's talk about someone real fun. He's short. He thinks he's the smartest guy on the planet. Who do you think that is?
I think I know who you're talking about.
Dr. Fauci. Matt likes to call him the naughty elf since he wants to take Christmas away, but apparently Halloween is just fine. I mean, how horrific. You have this man who doesn't even know what to say about natural immunity. He thinks he knows it all, and yet he knows nothing. How is that possible?
Well, we say in our house, Fauci you. Okay, that's what we say. But this is, so we're in these times and
Or Mother Fauci.
That's right.
How's that one? We're actually stealing the jokes from one of our friends. He's very funny.
And you realize what one lie leads to another lie, right? So the lie that you were all going to die of the virus, which is a serious virus. No one denies that it's serious. We've all had people we've lost in our lives. It's a terrible thing. But we got to keep our heads about us. And we got to teach our kids not to live in panic. I told my kids around the kitchen island the other day that I'm many things, but one thing I will not be is afraid to die. And I'm not going to be afraid to die because I happened to catch 3 minutes of the naughty elf on CNN trying to scare the ever-living you-know-what out of us. And what did that one lie lead to? It led to the election lie, right? It's not safe to vote. We got to have people vote by mail. We got to convince the Zuckerberg crew at Facebook to spend $400 million putting boxes in select precincts.
That couldn't be, you had no surveillance over the boxes.
And so one lie leads to another lie. And I think I would just like to tell you all, from being on the ground in Las Vegas, kind of by happenstance, Rick Grinnell called me and said, hey, would you jump on this plane right after the election and help us figure out what happened in Las Vegas?
And just so you all know, the campaign was not ready for the post-election. Yeah. That was a huge disaster. Huge disaster.
So I go there. Other people went to other places, like Pam Bondi went to Pennsylvania. And
Alex
I thought,
was in Wisconsin.
You were in Wisconsin?
Yep.
I went to Las Vegas. I'm 53 years old. I've spent my whole entire adult life in politics. I've been involved in many recounts. I was involved in the 2000 recount as you were. I've seen times when races were stolen. I've seen times when it was just a lot of fraud. I've seen times when it's a lot of nothing. I didn't know what to expect when I got to Vegas. When I got there, I'd never seen anything like it. And some of my former friends in politics would call me and say, why are you on TV making these outlandish claims? I was like, because I'm looking at the spreadsheets right here, and these are the numbers. Can I go through them with you? And it's amazing how people on presidential campaigns who taught me politics, who told me about the corruption that happens in these big cities, who told me about how their ballot harvest, who told me about how the voting list would not be cleaned, who told me they would barter cigarettes and booze and raffle off big screen TVs, anything they could to get the vote up, all of a sudden would go on TV and say voter fraud isn't a thing. Now, the last time there was voter fraud in a prominent way, it was a Republican in North Carolina, and I believe that there was someone who was convicted in North Carolina in a congressional race. That congressional candidate was not allowed to be sworn in. Now, I ask you this question. If Republicans can be guilty of voter fraud in a congressional race, how is it a Democrat is never guilty of voter fraud? It's illogical. And you all should have confidence in this, that I went into it somewhat skeptical. I didn't know what I'd find. I left being scared for our republic. And then we were briefed on what happened in Georgia. And we got a flavor for what's happened around the country. I think they've been planning to spike illegal voting for years and years and years. And they were able to use the cover of Chinese corona, and please call it that, because that's what it is, to execute a blue coup in this country. And when people tell you that you don't have the facts, you do. And you should have confidence in it. And we all have to make sure we work together to make sure, just like we did in 2000, if there are corrupt machines, get rid of the machines. If states need help getting a system that's more honest and honorable, we do that. If we have to make sure that the voting rolls get cleaned, we have to find ways to do that. But the final thing is, and I talked to somebody coming in who's doing this job, might be you, sign up, not just to be a poll watcher, sign up to go work in these election rooms.
Yes.
That was the biggest problem in Vegas. They hired all the temp workers. We found a couple of dozen people to say all the cheating that they found going on in the count room. There's not enough of us where the action is. I got a challenge for you. Run to the fight. Sign up and have your cell phone ready with a camera.
And remember, we're in the David versus Goliath mode right now, okay? It is Goliath when you have these woke corporations all involved in, we got to get involved in these voting laws that are happening across the country that they claim is getting rid of voter access. All lies, and they are just throwing money into these different fights in these different states. They're calling us that these Republican laws are discriminatory. Remember, the end goal of the Democrats, if they could pass H.R. 1, if they could pass S1, what they want to do is one-party control, ballot harvesting, federalizing the elections. It would be an ultimate disaster, and we have to make sure that we push back because it is a big battle. We've got big tech trying to censor us day in and day out, where they're literally like, anytime you post anything questioning on COVID-19, on vaccine mandates, you get that little flag of saying, oh, wait, no, here's the COVID information. They are going to keep moving in that direction to stop us from speaking up. And we have every right as Americans to question, to basically call out those individuals that are trying to push one narrative, because as Americans, that's part of freedom of speech. And we have to make sure that we hold these big tech companies accountable.
And so I have a challenge for you.
You have a lot of challenges,
I have another one. How about this might be the most important one in the next year? How about we fire Pelosi? How about we let her spend a lot more time at that hairdresser's place, whatever that poor woman that owned that salon who was just so attacked. And Chuck Schumer, how about we fire Chuck Schumer? And if the Republicans get power again in Congress, I have a challenge for them too. Do something with your power.
Yes.
Fight back. Make it stop. Let the states govern what it is their right. Let a parent govern what it is their right. Leave our children alone. Hands off the kids. And when it comes to China, we don't want any generals calling their Chinese counterparts saying, oh, we think what you're doing is peachy keen. Let's get a beer together when we both see each other again. No. When that General Milley was calling over to his Chinese counterpart, China was preparing to take military actions around Taiwan. They were throwing those kids in jail in Hong Kong. And he said, don't worry, we'll never use the military against you. This is unacceptable. And the Republicans, if they get power, they have to take the steps to make sure this outrageous behavior ends.
Okay, so we've gone through Pelosi, we've gone through Fauci. Where's Kamala?
We did Romney. We started with Romney.
Or in Spanish, Kamala. She is as MIA as I've ever seen a vice president. I mean, she's running far away from the border like baking cookies at a bakery. I mean, I've never seen an administration who they're trying to make sure that this border crisis goes away. And it is only gonna get worse. Pray for our Border Patrol agents. Know that we are in a very tough time with the border. You're gonna have 60,000 more people. By the end of this year, we could reach up to a 2 million number when it comes to illegal immigrants coming through the border. It is an outrage. It is a complete outrage for America that this is happening. In 1 month alone, it was 200,000 people were apprehended. You're talking about the size of the city of Richmond. And Biden doesn't want to build the wall. And so I got to tell you, when you look at the president's schedule, Sleepy Joe, I mean, he doesn't do anything all day. And he doesn't even answer questions. The American people are waking up to the fact that this man is not mentally fit to be president of the United States.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed what we got to share with such a dynamic group, Club 45 USA, here in Palm Beach, Florida. Watch tomorrow. We've got some more great highlights. We got to speak to a student who was actually suspended for wearing a Trump shirt. But we'll have more tomorrow night. Good night, and God bless y'all.